As a group fitness instructor, you'll find in the classes that you teach, regardless of the specific class format, that you'll have a wide variety of class participants, each at a different stage of learning. Now, by becoming a keen observer of your participants' skills and abilities, you'll be able to better understand how you can tailor your teaching strategies in order to ensure the safety and the success of each individual class participant. Now, there are 3 stages of learning: cognitive, associative, and autonomous. Participants in the cognitive stage of learning are relatively new to the movements or exercises that you've chosen to incorporate into your class experiences. Because of this, you may find that these individuals will perform the movements or exercises with a number of movement errors or improper form. For these individuals, it's important that they be provided with options for them to decrease the intensity or the complexity of the skills or movements that you are choosing to include. For individuals that are in the associative stage of learning, they've begun to sort of master the fundamentals or the basics of the movements, but they're now ready for that additional level of refinement. And that's where it's really important that you, as the group fitness instructor, provide them with some effective and positive feedback to help their movements to ultimately, in time, become more automatic. In the autonomous stage of learning, we find that participants are able to go through the movements and exercises in the class with relative ease. Essentially, it's like second nature to them. For these particular participants, what's important is that you, as the group fitness instructor, provide them with options to increase the intensity or the complexity of the movements in the class experience so that they can continue to grow and develop their fitness level. Now, how does this all apply to you as the group fitness instructor? Well, what's important to note is that, again, regardless of the class that you teach, you'll ultimately be teaching multi-level class experiences. And because of this, we have to have teaching strategies in place that will enable us to work with this diverse population of participants. Something interesting to note, what you might find when you're teaching group fitness classes, though it's not always the case, you may find that certain types of participants at various stages of learning tend to congregate to specific portions or places in the room. For example, you may find that many students that are in the cognitive stage of learning tend to gravitate towards the back of the group fitness space. And they tend to do this because they may be a bit intimidated or a bit unsure about their success or their ability to move their bodies through the movements or exercises that you have planned. What's important to note is to make sure that these individuals that may congregate towards the back of the room, that they have those options to be able to decrease the intensity or complexity of the skills, what we know as a regression. What you may find, again, not always the case, but you may see towards the center of your group fitness room that you have many individuals who are in that associative stage of learning. Remember, these are the participants that have started to master the fundamentals of the movements, but now they're ready for that additional refinement. This is important for you to know as the group fitness instructor because in addition to demonstrating the movements and exercises, when you begin to walk around the room, which we know to be a key skill of a great group fitness instructor, you'll want to make sure that you spend time with the participants in this portion of the room, providing that positive one-on-one type feedback. And finally, you may notice towards the front of your group fitness spaces that you have some participants that are in the autonomous stage of learning. These are typically your front row participants. Again, they've started to really master those movements. They've become almost automatic or like habit. And what's important for them is that you spend time providing them with progression options, ways that they can increase the intensity or complexity of the skills so that they can continue to find success in their fitness experience. So how can we apply this strategy of teaching all these different types of learners in one space and do that continuously, sometimes while we're moving to music? One way we can do that is by using a bit of a blueprint or a roadmap to provide those progressions or regressions of movements, something that we talk about in much more depth in another section of this course. One acronym that I'd like to share with you that can provide that blueprint or roadmap is the DRILLS acronym, DRILLS. The DRILLS acronym gives us an idea of ways that we can modify or adapt movements to tailor to the individuals in the cognitive stage of learning, as well as individuals that are in the autonomous stage of learning. The D in the DRILLS acronym stands for direction. The R can stand for a number of different elements of movement, such as rhythm or repetitions. The I stands for intensity or impact. The double L stands for lever length. And finally, the S of the drills acronym stands for stability. So again, how does this apply to you when you're designing and delivering your group fitness classes? Let me show you an example of how we could take, say, a common exercise or movement in a class format like yoga and use the drills acronym to tailor our teaching strategies and the options we're providing our participants for all of the different stages of learning. I'm going to turn just slightly to my side so you can see my range of motion and my movements just a little bit better. So for example, if I was teaching a movement or a pose in yoga like chair pose, known as Utkatasana, I can give some different options to my different levels of students, those different stages of learning, using the drills acronym as my blueprint. So if I had students standing at the top of the mat, I'd begin by having them stand with the feet together. Now, there's different ways that you can choose to approach this progression and regression type option. I choose to give sort of the middle of the road option, what would be great for the people in the associative stage of learning, and then give layers that would be appropriate for the individual in the cognitive stage of learning, as well as individuals at the autonomous stage of learning. So for chair pose, we begin with feet together, legs to touch, big toes to connect. As we inhale, hinge at the hips, begin to bend the knees, sit low like you're sitting back into that imaginary chair. Now for this variation of this particular posture, I'll invite my participants to extend their arms out at shoulder height, palms facing one another. So if I use this as sort of my base option, this is the desired movement that I'd like my participants to follow along with and perform, I can now use the drills acronym to give them some variations so that they can tailor the movement experience to meet their needs. So from this option, one way we can apply the drills acronym for individuals in the cognitive stage of learning is to invite them to change their base of support, their level of stability, the S in the drills acronym. So for example, for more stability, participants can part their feet hip-width distance apart, wider base of support, more stability. Additionally, we can choose to change the lever length, the double L in the drills acronym. We can do this by inviting participants to take hands to their hips or to place palms on tops of their thighs. So again, these are great options that individuals in that cognitive stage of learning may wish to explore. Now, if I come back to my base option, how can I choose to provide participants with progression options? Remember, that's ways to increase the intensity. One way to do that, if we talk about, again, lever length, the double L, is I can invite them to take a fuller expression, reaching the arms up, fingertips towards the ceiling, keeping the palms still facing one another. Now, another option, I could add even a balance challenge to this pose. I could invite my participants to rise up onto their toes, continue to sink the hips and bend the knees as they lower down. Now, let's not forget, though, about the individuals in that associative stage of learning. So we gave them that base setup option, but remember, they're looking for that refinement. So maybe some of the cues that I use verbally, visually, even kinesthetically, is to invite them to roll the shoulders back and down, to feel the shoulder blades slide down the back. Imagine, remember that kinesthetic cue, we're going to shift the hips back and sit into that low chair. I can also invite them to perform a slight pelvic tilt, drawing the tailbone just slightly down. So see how we can utilize that roadmap, the drills acronym, to give progression and regression options to serve those individuals at different stages of learning. I hope this information is helpful as you go on to create your group fitness experiences.